Okay. Hi, Sunday. How are you?
Hi, Douglas. I'm great. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. How did you get your name?
I was named after, it was a great, there's stories, great aunt, great grandmother, but I think it was a great aunt who was Dominica because my family, I'm half Italian, and my grandparents, we lived with my grandparents when I was a baby, and they wanted me to be named after her. So they gave me the English translation. Thank goodness. It was hard enough to live with that name because I got teased all the time. And as an adult, we like being different, but as a kid, it wasn't easy. But that's it. I was named after Domenica.
Dominica, okay. I thought perhaps you were just born on a Sunday.
Now that would be the easy explanation. No, I have to go into the whole story, but yeah, named after. It was a family name.
Okay.
And my daughter just had a baby, and she named her Marianne Domenica. So that was kind of fun.
Well, there you go. Mary Ann Sunday. Yeah. That almost sounds like something you'd order at Swenson's.
I know, I know.
Yeah. Why don't you give us just a quick bit of your backstory and then we'll talk about your book?
Oh, sure. I do live in LA, but I grew up on the East Coast in Pennsylvania and Connecticut, and I went to college in Maine, to Bates College. And then I was accepted. I transferred out to UCLA because my family had moved to California. And I stayed there and got my Master's of Arts degree in English Literature. And after that, I started writing book reviews, freelance book reviews. I taught English at community college level. And I've lived in LA for the last 4 decades. I've got two granddaughters, or two daughters, grown daughters, and three granddaughters, three little girls. And I'm a lifelong reader and aspired to be a writer most of my life. And I did write, as I said, book reviews a long time ago, freelance book reviews, but never fiction. And about 5 years ago, an idea occurred to me, and I couldn't stop writing. So that's how it
Okay.
happened.
Well, your book is called The Anglophile's Notebook. Is that the one we're promoting? Yeah.
Yeah, that's my only
O-
book.
Okay, your only book. All right. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So, what inspired that? Did you go to England for the first time and just sort of fall in love with it?
Well, actually, I've been going to England a lot. When I was at UCLA, I basically read, and Bates, I read basically nothing but novels and poetry set in England. So my first trip when I was 21, which was on a real shoestring budget, I wanted to go to see where all those books were set. And it was, really thrilling experience for me. Um, and then throughout the years, I've gone to lots of other places, but I keep on going back to England because as a book lover, it's really a terrific place to be in because so many of the writers that I love, and probably a lot of people love Jane Austen, Charles Dickens, Charlotte Bronte. They all wrote there, and the novels are set there. Um, but my book came to me because about 5 years ago, as I said, I got the idea. And at the time, I was really fascinated with the concept of people meeting online and not dating sites, but blogs. Blogs were really popular back then, and also websites and now Instagram. And the concept of people corresponding that way, discovering they had lots in common. They shared passions and interests, and then finally meeting in real life. What would happen? Would they become friends? And it happened to me with a couple wonderful people, and we did form friendships. And so I pictured my protagonist, Claire Easton, on an airplane from Los Angeles to London to meet someone that she only knows through that person's blog. And Claire's a magazine editor, and she's on her way to interview this woman about a book the woman has written. And meeting this woman, Beth Ramsey, is going to change Claire's life. And, on that trip, on that journey, and she believes in the transformative power of travel. She's kind of a romantic, and uh, she is, and it will truly transform her life, this trip. But I wanted her to have, you had to figure out, who is she, what is she leaving behind, and so I wanted her to have several unresolved issues. Uh, she's at a threshold, a crossroads in her life with several unresolved issues about her marriage, her career, her childlessness, and her mother who has just died. So she's on that trip. All these things are rolling around in her head. And unbeknownst to her, so many of them are going to play out on the trip. And I don't know if you want me to tell a couple more things about, to set it up a little bit more. She finds out very early on that her husband has been unfaithful. They don't have children. And so that's it. There's nothing. Her world in LA falls apart. There's nothing for her to return to. Her mother's just passed away. Her sister, her only sibling, has moved to New York. So she decides to stay in England indefinitely. Her husband's just left, by the way, on a 3-month, he's a music producer, on a 3-month tour of Australia. And, early on in the trip, she wanders into a very atmospheric, old bookstore and meets the bookstore owner, John Spencer, and they immediately bond over their love of books and their love of the Brontes. And he shows her a manuscript in his possession that may be an unpublished short story by a very young Charlotte Brontë. It all hinges on a letter from Charlotte's brother Branwell saying it's so, the letter's gone missing. So the two of them are going to embark on this literary journey of a lifetime to solve this mystery. And that's kind of how it begins, and that's the setup. And then it just grew from there. But definitely the book grew out of my love of England because I love books. I own a lot of books. I own a lot of books about the Brontes and other favorite writers. But I did discover over the years that for a book lover, London and England is really the most magical place to be. And so it's happened to me where I've been in these places and just felt just really in touch with some of my favorite writers or historic figures. And so I wanted Claire to be in that atmosphere where she could really thrive and do things that would just feed this part of her, like it did for me, throughout all the years. She can browse the glorious old bookstores of London and, have drinks in a pub where, Charles Dickens had drinks and, really walk in the footsteps of so many of her literary heroes and heroines. And, anyone can do this. You can do this if you do a little research. And so I put all those places in the book that I've been to or not. I researched a lot to kind of build the literary, historic, Victorian flavor of how I wanted the novel to come across.
Okay, one question that I have asked of guests that I've had on the show from the UK, and I've had several at this point, is particularly ones who have traveled to the United States. And I always ask them, make a compare and contrast. What do you like better about the UK than America and vice versa? Since you're an American, I'm going to ask the question in reverse. So aside from what you've told us about the books and just in general, what do you prefer about England or the UK over the US and then vice versa?
Well, that's a great question. I I don't want to idealize it too much. I mean, obviously, I go there as a tourist, and so I'm probably not seeing the England that most people see it, and I'm aware of that. But as an adventurous tourist, um, just looking at things that I enjoy or experiencing things I enjoy, I think that it just, I'm sorry if I already said this, it's just sort of like there's so much history around every corner. And I love old houses. And of course, the romantic in me loves the castles and the history. And I'm an Anglophile. I love all, the crown and the Acorn television, BritBox and all that. I just think that it feels so old. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that it's that old. There's so much. history there, and I love experiencing it, learning in it, seeing the monuments to it. Um, and their customs. I'm a sucker for afternoon tea, and I do love the food. It's good. I like the food, and I love getting into the countryside. It's just absolutely ravishing. It's just green rolling hills and the little villages. And I know that's not all of England. There's the industrial north. There's a lot of places that are. I mean, I went to Haworth where the Brontes lived, and it's not like that. But it has its own beauty, which I really admire. Um, and I do know a few English people who I have found very kind and very lovely. But I have to say, I don't know that many. So it's just a great, for me, a destination to go to and just feel like, in a way, you can kind of uh, feel like you're, somebody different. And I think that's one of the things about travel, particularly with my character, but some of the things I've even experienced. I know it's not really answering your question, but just getting away from here and looking at, your life with, you're a little more liberated on a trip. You're a little, lose your inhibitions a little bit. You can figure things out from a distance. And I think that definitely happens in my book, The Anglophile's Notebook. And in terms of, did you ask me also what I like better here than there?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think that, I think that we're so much more casual here, and I love that. I really do. I love that we're not caught up, at least in California, on where everybody went to school and your lineage, um, and
Okay.
your background. We're not like that. We're definitely not like that here. Um, Even the East Coast, they're a little bit more interested in where you went to school, where your parents went to school, things like that. But I did grow up back there, but I love California, and maybe I could say, the whole country, in that you can do things here. So you start with uh, something that's a basis of not much, and then if you're lucky, if you work hard, or it doesn't happen, but uh, you can build up to something that is a higher thing. And I think maybe in England, and I'm speaking only as a novice who doesn't know all the ins and outs, I think it might be harder. I don't know. I don't know if they're stuck with the class system so much that prevents it, but I'm not speaking as an authority, and I'm definitely ready to be corrected on that. But I think that I like our culture of casualness and looseness, and we're very friendly, and especially in California. When I moved from the East Coast, I couldn't believe how much everybody smiled here. I was like, I can't believe how much people smile here. They didn't do that where I grew up, and it's different. And so that's what I would say about, like, I love this country, obviously, but when I travel, I do like to kind of feed my Anglophile self.
Well, I think one of the reasons why people smile all the time in California is the weather.
Yeah.
I grew up in Boston most of my life. I live in Las Vegas now since 2005. But when it's 10 degrees and snowing and muddy and dreary and gray, there's no reason to smile.
My father was shoveling snow and cleaning off the windshield.
Yeah,
He
that's
certainly
not.
wasn't smiling. That's
We
for
don't
sure.
smile about that. But once you get out to California and it's warm and it's nice,
It's
and
not.
it's then
Yeah.
you smile.
I
I'll give you the answer that I got from the British on what they like, just to reverse this, and then we'll have to wrap it up.
Okay.
Um, what they all said, and I asked this question to three different people, is they said what really struck them about America was how big it was. Because you can fit the entire UK in Texas and still have room, where our country is just massive. And that's something that they
Like that.
just were overwhelmed by. I mean, they said they came here, they rented a car, and they just drove forever.
It's
And
true.
you still never saw even, half of the country. They said just the wide open space really
Yeah.
blew them away, and
I,
that's what they liked. And they liked just the strangeness of it. I remember one guy said he was in Florida and he was driving with his friends, and he said first you go by a McDonald's, then a strip mall, and then there's a gun store, and then there's, you know, just all these crazy things all thrown in one
Mhm.
spot, which
Yeah.
you would never see in England.
No, and
So,
that
and
and that's I think one of the things I like when I'm driving in England, that you're not seeing that, and it's really quite it makes you feel like it's time has stood still. You know, you
yeah, in some places that I've been to England, it just looked like it was something out of the last millennium almost, you know.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, we do have to wrap it up. Thanks so much for coming on. Do you have a website you want to give out? People can come check out your book and.
I am in the process of building the website. My book is fairly new, and as a newbie, a novice at this, that's my next step. So I'm so sorry. They can definitely buy the book at bookstores are carrying it, and also on Amazon. So I would say that, and my website is to come. It's going to come soon.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was nice talking to you. Best of luck with your